Jan Danaher, good morning.
Good morning, Neil. Thanks for having me.
Well, look, thanks for coming. Am I in trouble? Neil tells me you're going to save it. On page 274, he said you were angry with me because I ran a poll. Should Neil Danaher be sacked as Melbourne coach? And he said, you never forget.
I've forgiven you. I've got over it. But at the time, I wasn't very happy with you, I have to say.
They were tough days, weren't they?
They were tough days, and they always are, I think, for every wife of a coach when the coach is, your husband's coming to the end of his coaching stint. So, but all good now.
He's all very philosophical about that in the book, but I assume at the time he wasn't. But let's talk about you. Walking around the MCG boundary, big freeze day, crowd cheering Neil and the family. What does it feel like?
Oh, look, that is an incredibly special day. And I think when you look around the crowd and you see all the beanies and you see all the faces that are supporting Fight MND and our family and Neil, it's totally overwhelming. And we're just so thankful that, we've got that support from people.
Do you shed a tear when you're doing that?
Oh yeah, it's very hard not to, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But really, you just have to stop and have a look around and take it all in.
You're in an extremely difficult position. You told me you don't feel alone. Why?
I think as a carer, when you're home looking after someone, you can tend to feel a little bit alone. But from the work with Fight MND and the journey that we've had over the 5 years and building and just seeing all the people that have been prepared to help, to volunteer, to raise money, to run their own fundraisers, it just makes you realise how many wonderful people there are out there. And again, I think we're very lucky to have such incredible support from all walks of life and all communities. So, very lucky.
What's it like at home?
He works. He spends the time before any event just getting himself ready, making sure he's not too tired, because it does take an awful lot out of him, especially now that his breathing is affected, so he can't get around to things as quickly as he can. And when he is speaking, he has to speak slowly now so people can understand, but also because it's affecting his breathing. So we just work carefully to prepare for those things, and getting him organised to go anywhere now, that takes a bit of time, and we're still not very good at it. We still find we run out of time just trying to get him, dressed and ready to go. But,
so it must make a very busy life for you.
Yeah, it's very busy, but I love being busy, and I think being busy helps. I think you have less time to think about what's happening and think about yourself. So the busier I am, I think the better I handle it.
Do you ever think about it?
I do. There are times at night and just when you're sitting down that you do think about what's happening, what's ahead. Try not to think about what's ahead, but we know when I'm feeling a little bit down about where we're at the moment, I think to myself, well, we're way better off than we will be in a few months, and so I figure I can't be feeling too sorry or sad for myself at the moment, because we know it's going to get a lot more difficult.
Is that frightening to live with?
I think there's a weight that you feel on your shoulders that it's there all the time. You don't really have a break from it. And as to what will happen in the future, yeah, that is scary, and it is frightening, and I know we'll deal with it, and we'll deal with it all as a family, and but it's not something that I try to think about.
If this is too personal, don't answer, but have you discussed that with Neil?
We have, but not in great depth just yet. We will. We are determined to keep Neil at home. So, that's going to take a lot of effort from a lot of people. We're very lucky that we have NDIS, and that's been an amazing help for us. I do have carers that can come in during the week, so which allows me to go to work. So having them has just changed, my life and Neil's to extent. Sometimes he tells me they do a better job than I do, which, we get that the support will be so important to keep him at home.
Does he need special facilities at home already?
He's starting to because he cannot use his hands, or very, very limited use of his hands. There are things he needs, and there are a lot of things that he will need in the future. We've discussed a special bed for him and a wheelchair. And because he's so tall, he needs a special extra large wheelchair, and because he can't use his hands, we're trying to work out ways that he'll be able to use that. He's also now, because he loves to work on the computer, the laptop, looking at using different ways to be able to get information down and type, etc. So there's a lot of things that he will need, and we're well aware of what they are and ready to go when we need them.
Is all that close?
Sorry?
Is that close, that sort of situation, or you don't know? You see, people see Neil out there walking around laughing and joking and performing, which is what he's doing.
Yeah.
Then he goes home and you've got to face these things. I mean, how long can he keep going out performing?
I think he's finding now that the talking in public is extremely difficult. I think there'll be very few times now where he'll be able to go out and do that. His legs are still reasonably strong, so at the moment he can walk around okay.
Jeez, they weren't when he was playing football.
No, they weren't. They're probably better now in some respects. But I think the breathing is his big issue. And obviously, of course, he's speaking and using hands. But I think the breathing is the thing that will affect him over the next year.
I love the way in the book he describes the positive little fella on his shoulder and the negative little fella, and we've all got those, haven't we? Have you got a negative one, or you got rid of it?
Absolutely, I do. And very much like Neil, you have to push Mr. Negative out the way and just make sure you're listening to Mr. Positive. Sometimes that's a bit hard.
Well, what's Mr. Positive saying to you?
Just to make the most of the time we've got. We've been very lucky. Neil's lived a lot longer than most MND patients. When Neil was diagnosed, we thought he would have, 27 months or roundabouts. Some people with MND have 3 months. It moves so quickly.
How did you cope with that at the time? 'Cause like most of us, you probably... And Neil and you have changed the world because we do now know more about MND, but probably when you heard about it, you knew very little.
I didn't know anything about MND.
But you're told, I've got MND, it could be two and a half years.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't sink in for a long time. I mean, I think he's got MND, but you don't take it in, and there'll be days where you totally you forget about it for a bit. But no, it was very difficult. Obviously, when we found out the diagnosis, it was extremely difficult telling our kids, and it was terribly draining when we started to tell other people, and that was a really difficult time.
You told me the other day when we were chatting that you felt he'd got funnier as time goes on. What do you mean?
He has. He's. I think when you're in such a high pressure job coaching, he tended to lose a little bit of his sense of humour. But especially in the last 5 years, he's a pretty funny guy now.
Oh, don't encourage. But is that genuine, or is that a philosophy or a defence mechanism?
I think it's genuine. I mean, we'll just be talking about something and it may be something quite serious, and then he'll just come out with a one-liner and he'll be grinning away at me, and it just breaks the seriousness of the situation, and we have a laugh, and then off we go again. So he's witty and he's quite quick, and he says he's usually the brunt of his jokes, but I think I am most of the time.
I remember being on stage with him a couple of times at fundraisers, and just before we'd go on to talk to the audience, he said, let's not be too sad about all this, let's not be too down.
No.
Which I found extraordinary, because we're there to raise money for MND.
Yeah, no, that's very important to him. So from the very start, it was about how can we raise money and make it fun for people, so people can have fun and they don't feel too dragged down by what's happening to him. And so everything that we do, we try to have a bit of a laugh along the way.
Talking to Jan Danaher, the book Neil Danaher, When All Is Said and Done, I strongly recommend it. He's a national hero, you know. What's it like being married to a national hero?
Well, I don't think we even look at that or think about that. He's very down to earth. And as I said earlier, none of how he's portrayed would happen without people supporting him and FightMND.
Ever tell him off?
Oh, absolutely.
What for? What do you tell him off for?
Heaps of things. He's so pedantic and so particular about stuff. And I think when we've been involved in the Danaher Drive now for 5 years, and we work closely on that for quite a few years, and that can be quite difficult. He's looking over my shoulder telling me what I should be doing all the time. So,
Well, he's a volunteer too. Well, you all are. That's something really worth remembering, isn't it?
yeah, well, all the board at FightMND volunteer their time, and Neil and Pat Cunningham and Ian Davis, before he died, all volunteer their time and have done since the foundation started.
Jan, it's a delight to see you again. If we can help any way along the journey, Neil knows this and you know this, we will, promoting things or whatever else can be done. He tells me he would have won a couple of Brownlows. What do you reckon?
Oh, I didn't watch him play, so I don't know.
You were being a champion netballer, weren't you?
No, I was just playing a lot of netball at the time. So
you were a better netballer than he was a footballer, weren't you?
Oh, absolutely, of course.
Well,
No.
Do you reckon he's listening?
Oh, I bet he is, and I bet he'll give me a critique when I get home.
The other thing, he's got songs at the back of the book. He's got some weird music tastes. Stairway to Heaven, the Logical song, Super Tramp. But there's one for you.
There is. Yeah, which is lovely of him. Thank you, Neil.
Have I Told You Lately? Has that got a history to it?
No, that's just the song that he picked out. That he,
And do you like the song?
Yeah, yeah. I like all his songs. I actually like all of them. Well, I've listened to his music for a lot of years. He loves his music, and it's really important to him. So I get to hear all those songs.
Neil Danaher, When All Is Said and Done. Jan, thanks so much for coming in. And this is what Neil would play for you, dedicated for you. If we can help, let us know.
Thanks, Neil.
Van Morrison. Neil dedicates this to Jan in the book.